Open innovation, a golden opportunity? One of the things we have to reckon with in this 21st century world is that we're living in a time of a knowledge explosion. Quite simply, we don't know what we know. There is so much knowledge out there. We've got a few measures of it. We know, for example, how much new knowledge is produced. In the field of science and technology, we measure how much is spent on research and development, and that comes to a staggering $1,600 billion being spent every year. But it's not just about technical knowledge. We're also interested in markets. And there again, we've got a rather large amount of knowledge to deal with. There are 7 billion people on the planet, spread all over the place, with many differences. People are not all the same, but if we want to innovate, we need to understand them. We're in an era where we've moved a long way from Henry Ford and his idea of mass production. You can have any car you like as long as it's black and a Model T. Now we're talking about mass customization, personalization of products and services. And users aren't just passive consumers. Increasingly, they're involved in consuming and creating innovations, something that Eric von Hippel calls the democratization of innovation. So in a world like this, there is just so much knowledge, it's beyond the capacity of any organization to know all that's out there, which is a big innovation challenge, well summed up by this man, Bill Joy, who was one of the founders of Sun Microsystems, and he famously said, "No matter who you are, most of the smartest people work for someone else." Even the largest organization can't know everything, and so they need to open up to new knowledge sources. But that's a two-way street. Unused knowledge inside your own organization might also be of value to someone else. So this really raises the challenge of what we've been talking about, the idea of open innovation. And these were well-defined principles articulated first by Henry Chesbrough in his book and in his articles, and they basically summarize this opportunity. If not all the smart people work for you, then external ideas can help create value, but we need internal R&D to make sure we can unlock that value. There's an opportunity to profit from other people's use of your intellectual property and also to buy their intellectual property wherever it enhances your own business model. This means we need to think about expanding the role of R&D, research and development, to include not only knowledge generation, but also knowledge brokering. The idea, of course, here becomes then one of building a better business model rather than simply being first to market. But if you want to make the best use of internal external ideas, then you'll win. And Henry Chesbrough's model typically is presented in a form like this. Essentially, it's our famous innovation funnel, creating value from ideas, but it's a funnel perforated with all sorts of holes that allow things to come in and flow out. It's a much more open approach. Now, this is a challenge of innovation management in a spaghetti world, and it is a challenge. We're talking about a multiplayer game, open innovation. It's about knowledge flow, not just knowledge creation. And that's perhaps the thing that marks it out as different in this 21st century. It's all, therefore, about connection and interactivity inside and outside the organization and in flows between the two. It's not always about new knowledge. Sometimes it's about using what's already there in different fashion, what's sometimes called recombinant innovation. So there are rich opportunities in this space, but there are also many challenges alongside them. And if we start with Chesbrough's principles, we can begin to see this. For example, it seems like a golden opportunity to tap into external knowledge. After all, that's going to increase the pool of available knowledge. And that's going to reduce the reliance that we have on our internal and sometimes our limited knowledge. But how do we search for and how do we identify relevant knowledge sources outside the organization? And how do we share or transfer such knowledge, especially when not all of it is easily written down and simple to transfer? It might be tacit knowledge or knowledge embodied in systems. So yes, it's a nice principle, but harder to put into practice. Or take a second of Chesbrough's points. External R&D has significant value. Well, of course it does. It can reduce the cost and uncertainty associated with our internal R&D and increase its breadth and depth. But it's less likely to lead to distinctive capabilities, and it becomes more difficult for us to differentiate because that external R&D is also available to competitors. So again, not as easy as it looks. Take another principle. We don't have to originate research in order to profit from it. Well, that's a nice principle. That reduces the costs of our internal R&D so we can redeploy those resources in searching outside and in building external relationships. But we're going to still need sufficient internal R&D capacity in order to be able to make sense of what's out there, to identify, evaluate, and adapt anything that comes from outside. Another principle, the idea of building a better business model being superior to being first to market. Well, again, that's important, and it pushes our emphasis very much on capturing rather than just creating value. But first mover advantages are very dependent on the technology and market context, and we may be letting some of those go if we delay by creating a new business model. And developing that business model is going to take time, and time-consuming negotiation with many other stakeholders. The idea that better use of internal and external ideas is an improvement on just focusing on internal ideas, that's fine, and that certainly means that we have a better balance of our resources, able to search and identify ideas rather than just generating them. But generating ideas is only a small part of the innovation process. We're not just short of ideas, it's all the other things that go into actually developing them to something that creates value. In fact, most ideas are unproven or of little value. So we're going to have costs wherever those ideas come from, but if they come from outside, we'll have costs in evaluating and developing them. And the idea that we might profit from other people's intellectual property, and they might also contribute to our profits by using our internal R&D. Well, that's fine, but the value of our intellectual property is still very sensitive to complementary capabilities. Things like our brand, our sales network, our production facilities, our logistics, and also the other complementary products and services we wrap around them. Even if other people used our IP, they may not be able to duplicate what we do. But there are conflicts likely to emerge inside our organization in terms of differences in commercial interests or in the strategic direction we take. And we're going to need to negotiate acceptable forms and terms of those IP licenses, which could take a long time. So the challenge clearly is that open innovation offers many opportunities, and Chesbrough's principles embody those very well. But realizing those opportunities is not going to be easy. We're going to need to do a lot more than simply adopt the phrase, the slogan of open innovation. If we're serious, we're going to have to learn how to manage it.